know that virtual coaching has become more competitive than ever. NASM's got you covered with our virtual coaching course. NASM's virtual coaching course provides a complete solution to help you translate your services into a successful virtual platform. This course will give you the tools to build and operate a sustainable virtual business model. The formats may be different, but you're still delivering fitness training and effective behavioral coaching. That doesn't change even if you can't be in the same physical space as your clients. The truth is, this is the way to reach more clients and expand your reach and impact. There's never been a better time to carve out your very own virtual space, and NASM is here to help. Welcome to NASM's virtual coaching.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to another Random Fit episode. My name is Wendy Batts, and I'm here with my friend and colleague, Mr. Ken Miller. So, Ken, how are you today?
I am awesome. Happy to be here. How are you?
I am fantastic. Now, I'm going to say this. If I need to bolt out, we have tornado warnings and all kinds of crazy weather going on right now. So if I peace out quickly, you guys know I'm taking cover. However,
I got the shift from here. Yeah, I'll take it from here. So
yeah.
If we're looking at an empty chair, we'll know what's happening.
Yeah, just know if you're a crazy siren, I'm gone.
Right. Whatever happens, just be safe.
I'm telling you, right? Yeah. But besides that, everything else is fantastic. So it's a good day. Woke up this morning. Makes for a good day.
Yeah, that's right. And I'm sitting here just trying to sit as tall as I possibly can, head up, chest forward, shoulders back, and trying to be on my best behavior when it comes to this week's topic, which I'm sure we've all heard about. What is so important about sitting up straight and getting the shoulders back, but it takes work. Yes. I don't know if you've tried to focus it on that in a while, but when you get on an airplane, you kind of just want to sit back, get the seat back, or when you're at home sitting on the couch, you just want to kind of sit back. But now that we're going to talk about posture today, just sitting up here trying to focus on that's a little bit of work.
It is. So there's something to be said when your mom was yelling at you at a young age to stand up straight or sit up straight, whatever it is that was going on. Today, we're going to talk about why that is such a really good idea. I'm excited because, a big part of it, I think, is we all have really crummy posture. If you look around, you're going to see people just slunching forward, their heads dropped. Even when you're standing, feet are out, arching their back. Mm-hmm. And, people just don't feel well all in all. I shouldn't say everyone, but there's a lot of people out there just moving and living life in discomfort. And a lot of it is due to their posture. So, I think it's easy to probably talk about, and I'll let you start that off, Ken, if you want. But what are some reasons, in your opinion? And now, granted, this is just opinion, but what are your reasons for probably seeing a lot of the compensations in people with poor posture?
Well, let me start off with a story, Wendy.
Oh, geez. Grab your popcorn, ladies and gentlemen. Here we go.
Yeah. Pull up the the blanket, sit up, cozy up on the couch. Ken's ready to talk. Well, I think when I think about posture, one of the things that pops into my head is when I first started to work with Alan, our friends Al Russell, Tyler Wallace, and good old Mike Clark. And one of the reasons why I started to work with them, and I actually hired these guys to look at me and assess me. This was back in 1999, 2000. When NASM started to change the OPT model. And that's when I first got my glimpse of, okay, why posture is important, because the original reason for me to talk to them to begin with was because I had this recurring shoulder injury. And here I am thinking it's because this was my throwing arm when I played baseball. I'm right-handed, so hand dominance, and because I wrestled in high school. and recreationally in college, by the way. But Cal Poly Pomona recreational wrestling champ, by the way. Just so you know.
Do you want me to send you a trophy or what, dude?
Oh no, I got one. It's still
Okay.
so I polish it off. The shirt's a little worn, but anyway, they were they were one of the first guys to really expose me to the fact that my shoulder issue wasn't because it was just from all the things that I was doing with this right arm. It was because of my posture. I had such poor posture, Wendy, and I had been training, I don't know, 15 years at that point. By the time I started to enter this conversation about, okay, what can I do about my shoulder? It's like, well, it's your core. It's the fact that your feet turn out and your knees cave in, and you stand with this forward head, forward shoulder posture, and that's what's causing the stress on your shoulder. So one of the biggest reasons why, personally speaking, on why posture and having good, efficient posture is so important is because it helps with injury prevention. When we talk about injury prevention, I know we've talked about this in the past, it is about moving efficiently and having it so that the bones and the joints overall, ensure that they have the best relationship possible, which also means that muscle balance and synergies are the best that they can be. So when we talk about posture, to where your head is up, your shoulders are back, head lined up over the shoulders, over the hips, over the knees, over the ankles, that that's a safe position. It's an efficient position to be in. And I learned it firsthand because there was just this nagging thing that just kept getting me year after year. Like it'd go away, get better, but then it'd come back, some fluke thing. So injury prevention is the number one reason why I teach the importance of posture. So
that's a really good one, because I mean, that's a big one. And I think as a trainer, that's super important because, we can actually help people and cue people out of that and work on ways to correct some of these imbalances that we're talking about. Meaning if you don't have good posture, you've got an imbalance somewhere. I think one of the biggest things that I hear from clients or see myself, and I am a victim to this as well, is how you sleep. And sometimes we forget about that because, on average, we're supposed to be having anywhere from 6 to 8 hours of sleep. So if you're a stomach sleeper, if you turn your neck and you're laying weird, and you don't have a good pillow, and you're, because basically you're supposed to be laying on your back with your hands to your side. I mean, who does that? And if so, teach me how, because I can't do it. Even when I was pregnant, they told me I couldn't lay on my stomach, which obviously I couldn't after a while. I'm like, okay, this is a problem. But there's a lot of things that happen when you're, bring your knees up towards your stomach, or I hike a leg over my blankets. I mean, I do all kinds of weird things. Plus I lay my hand or my arm under my pillow, and okay, that's awesome for your shoulder and your neck and your hips. Right. And so when we talk about, when we're talking about why alignment is so important, and when Ken was talking about standing up straight and in, the importance of just how you're standing, I think one of the key things, and this is what I tell all my clients, I tell all my friends, and I have people tell me, because I fall, again, victim to this, is be aware. Look at how you're standing. I was at the grocery store. I had one foot cocked out to the side. I mean, just waiting to pay for my groceries. And I'm like, oh, that's not good. But, you got to do some self-checks sometime. Right.
Now, you've got a long history of working with athletes, especially going back to your time working with professional baseball. When did posture become a part of the conversation for you? Since you've been trained, you've been in the field and you've been in the industry of performance, personal training for a very long time. When did posture...
Are you calling me old?
I've got a couple more years on you, Wendy.
I got a very long time. Just instead of you've been doing this for a while, I got a very long time.
You've been doing this,
I remember that.
I can say that because I'm your elder. I am a little bit older than you, but you've been doing this as long as I have, right? Which is a long time, right? So, and I know that when I first started training, posture wasn't something they taught us when I got my undergrad, right? They never had a class that talked about movement efficiency, postural alignment. If you ever got that or saw that, it was in the anatomy books, right? But we know that anatomy books don't translate to a living human being. So when did the topic of posture become the crux of your conversation with a new client? So how does did that start entering the introductory session for you, whether it was with an athlete or a personal training client?
Well, I think I'm a little bit different because keep in mind, after graduation, my first job was at a physical therapy clinic.
Yeah.
And they paired me with someone who was supposed to kind of show me the ropes and, kind of take what I learned in college and teach me like the application of that before I decided to go to physical therapy school. So this was kind of my in-between job before going back to school. And they ended up pairing me with Dr. Mike Clark. And so from day one of my training and teaching and coaching and everything, it literally was about feet straight, knees over the second and third toe, which I'm like, what does that even mean? But, when you're looking in the mirror and you look at your feet, what you think is straight and what really is straight may be totally different because your brain has been all messed up for so long that what's natural to you isn't necessarily correct. Because again, your imbalances over a while becomes the new program that your body wants to just go to because it's going to fall to that path. And so to answer your question, just the short and skinny of it, from day one, when I actually started to work with people, that was the big, this is the reason why you're going to move better, feel better, and you're going to be more powerful, and you're going to reduce the chances of injury if you start this way, move this way, and train this way, which immediately made sense to me, but somebody had to tell me that. It literally took someone saying, stand this way, and this is why.
Right.
But for those of you guys that are joining us, we're talking about the power of posture and why alignment is important. I am Wendy Batson here with Ken Miller, and it started since probably we could, we started walking.
You got lucky. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, we actually did another podcast back in the day, right? How do you have, perfect alignment when you're born? And we just get screwed up from there. Life just takes over, and that go with the flow isn't always good for your body.
Yeah. I forgot that you got started off right off the bat with Mike and learning under him. See, those of us living in San Diego, not in Arizona at the time, weren't as lucky. But I was
very lucky. I mean, in all reality, I owe that man so much. He has been one of my mentors. He's still my mentor to this day. I got very, very lucky. Yeah.
So you started talking about it from day one. For me, I mean, I was putting people on selectorized equipment. Here's the seated chest. It's your first day in the gym. Okay, here we go. Here's the seated chest press. Here's where you adjust the weight. Here's where you adjust the seat. And this is how you push the bar. And give me 10. Right. That was my introduction to personal training, because I didn't have, not like you. I didn't have a mentor, someone to take me through and talk to me about how posture, affected movement efficiency. I was just taught, okay, hey, we have, X amount of pieces of equipment. This is how you use it. Teach the members how to use it so that they use the facility, which is how the business model works. But actually teaching somebody how their body works and how the machine relates to their body was something that took me a while to incorporate into my training style and how I looked at the body and how therefore I train the body. So the conversation now revolved around, once I got to learn, a lot of it from Anthony Carey, one of our friends down in San Diego, and got exposure to the OPT model. Now the conversation was about, okay, here's where your body is best aligned. Here's the safest position for you to be in, and therefore move to and from as you get into and out of a position. And, if we don't address that, what happens is that if you come in with a forward head, forward shoulder, excessive anterior pelvic tilt, knees coming in, feet turning out, all those compensations that you can list off. Well, the second I put a dumbbell in your hand, and if we don't address posture, you are going to be a bigger, stronger version of that, right? And when I say stronger, you can get strong in different ways, but how long are you going to maintain that strength before you put too much stress that it exacerbates, any, injury potential? So that's one of the things that came along after a while, because, as you get people strong, and then, one of the things I really hate is when you work out, so you get somebody to work out hard and then they have some kind of shoulder issue or some kind of low back issue. And those are the things that happens when you don't address posture when putting them under a resistance training program.
Well, and I think, it's kind of an eye opener too, because, you'll see some of these individuals that come in and they are just buff, like totally buff, and they look great. They've got really big lats.
Yeah.
But it took me a while to realize that if you drop your hands to your side, you want to think your arms, what is comfortable. And a lot of these bigger, especially in the chest and shoulder area, when they dropped their hands, they couldn't even put their hands to their side, and all you could see is the knuckles. And it was actually because they were so internally rotated that it made their lats look huge. However, it was a major compensation. And they were like, oh my goodness, I keep having this shoulder pain and I don't understand why. I'm like, wow, okay. Have you looked in the mirror? And they're like, I have. And I look amazing. I'm like, you do look amazing. However, there is a huge compensation that's going to lead to some excess pain in your shoulder unless we kind of get your shoulders back in proper alignment. So, when we talk about posture, just think about, what is proper positioning, as we said, and then where do you fit in the spectrum? And, not everyone's perfect. I don't think I've ever seen anyone perfect from the beginning until someone points it out. And so when you're sitting at work and you're sitting in front of the computer, because technology is such a thing, then try, making sure that your keyboard is in a good position, that your head is in a good position, and put a sticky note on your computer or set a timer to get up and stretch or move around. Because I know for myself, when I get really dialed in on something that I'm doing on the computer, I can be on there for 2 or 3 hours, have not moved, haven't thought about anything other than what I'm focusing on, which can then lead to improper movement patterns, bad posture. And it's, and then I'm like, why does my back hurt? Why does my neck hurt? I'm like, because I've been on the computer all day doing nothing else.
Have you ever had one of those software programs on your computer that's set to go off on the hour or every 60 or 90 minutes so that you can get up and do a stretch, and then on the screen pops up these neck stretches? Or have you ever had that installed on your
I have not, but I've asked clients to do that, especially when their job is 100% online. So meaning that is all that they do, especially programmers. However, I have had people say I installed it, but I was in the middle of doing some programming where it was very intense, and all of a sudden they lost it because this thing kept popping up, which totally messed up their concentration.
Yeah,
and
it is.
So,
it is.
Yeah. So there's some, good and bad stuff. It's just, watch your posture, people. Have good posture, because, and I see this because my husband is amazing at it. And I don't know, but we'll go, like you said, on an airplane, and, I'll look at him and he is like all like posture's great, good spine alignment, head's lined up, and he's asleep. I'm like, he doesn't even want to really touch his body to the back of the headrest, because he's very OCD, by the way, so he doesn't like, he has to make sure everything's wiped off before he touches it, which especially now is a really good thing. But people are always like, man, he's got amazing posture. So people notice it, and I hear it, so therefore I try to do the same thing, because we're married, so we got one looks good, one looks bad, so that's a no-go.
Oh, stop.
But it is, it's one thing that I truly have to myself be very aware of what I'm doing. And, when someone's lecturing, I'm trying to sit up, I'm like, I get tired. I just want to crunch back down, and,
well,
easy.
And you actually bring up a really good point there, is because, there's always somebody watching. And I'm sure Tony's sitting up nice and tall and upright because he knows you're kind of looking out the corner of your eye, just glancing at his posture, and you're going to harp on him a little bit if he's slouching over. But one of the reasons why I try to do that more so at home is because I have 2 kids, and they watch, and I tell them, hey, if they've been on their screen, if they're on their tablet or watching TV and they've got their head forward and their shoulders, you're never too young to get into bad posture, right? So if I'm telling them to do that, then the one thing that I have to own is to give them that good example, because they will mimic the postures that I assume, right? And again, I don't want to keep a double standard to where I'm telling them to sit up straight. Meanwhile, I'm hunched forward looking, I got my head, 6 inches in front of my rib cage. So I try to set a good example as well, because I know that they're watching, and a lot of my friends and family know what I do for a living. And if I'm slouching and if I've got my head forward, shoulders forward, from that standpoint, I lose all credibility. And not to mention that I do feel better. when I do sit upright, as we all do. But you mentioned a lot of good cues there. Put a little Post-it note, set an alarm on your computer. But one of the things I tell my clients to do is when you get into your car, sit up as tall as you can, and then adjust that rear view mirror to where you can only use it when you can only use it if you're sitting upright and tall, and you can use that. The rear view and the side view mirror again are both adjusted so that you can only use it when you're sitting nice, tall, and upright. So I'm not looking forward to them to. Yeah, I don't want anybody in a car accident, but the best you can set that up as a reminder. And you should be looking at your mirrors every 15, 20 seconds anyway to look for an escape route, right? Do you do that? Make sure that.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
And those of you guys that are just joining us, we're talking about the power of posture and why alignment is important. I'm Wendy Batts, and we're here with Ken Miller. And Ken just brought up something about the car, and I'm going to actually second that, because there's one thing that I have noticed in the two vehicles that we own, and I see this very commonly in a lot of other vehicles that are out on the road, is when you're actually seated in your driver's seat or in the passenger side, the head rest, and it'll be angled forward. And so it's weird because if you're not careful and you lean up against it, it actually pushes your head forward out of alignment. And so what we've done is we've actually taken the headrests and turned them backwards. So, I mean, if we still get in a wreck, we have support. We're not going to go and like have whiplash or anything because we took it off, but we actually turned it back. So therefore it literally allows us to be in a more natural position. And why they have those rests like that, I really don't know. It's very concerning when you're really thinking about posture if someone doesn't adjust it correctly, because, I struggle from having, imbalances from my job. I work on a lot of people. I do a lot of manual therapy. So looking down and then being on the computer and then doing things without being aware of my posture had caused me to have some disc issues in my neck. And, and that's what happens is repetitive use. And over time, if you're not careful with posture, you can have disc issues. You can have pain or discomfort in areas of your lower back. And a lot of it is if you just get up and stretch, you really try to move around, you're aware of how you should be standing or how you should be sleeping, and you try. It just takes time, because repetitiveness will lead to better changes in life. Then, it's hard to do. Yeah. It's hard to do.
And you bring up a good word there, is in repetitive use. Mm-hmm. A lot of people don't realize that sitting in this computer posture, head forward, looking at your computer screen, hands on the computer, even though you're relatively still and you're holding this posture of head forward, hands down, that is a repetitive motion. It doesn't have to be just, repeatedly throwing a ball, squatting, or if you're a carpenter, hammering a nail. Things like that, those are definitely repetitive, but repetition is just being in a constant state of a position. And that's what can lead to this misalignment or malalignment of your skeletal system. And that's something that people don't realize, like, oh, repetitive. Well, I'm not repeatedly getting into and out of this seated posture. No, you are just sitting there, and that's a repetitive motion, like just like a cyclist would be in their pedaling motion, or a runner with that running cycle with their arms and their hips and their legs. Sitting behind the posture is a repetitive motion to begin with. Yeah, well, also. So we need to look at seated positions and getting out of that misalignment, just like what we would do for any one of our athletes, whether they're a thrower, a golfer, a runner, or a cyclist. And so whatever we would do with an athlete is the same thing we would do with somebody that would be sitting behind a computer 8, 9, 10 hours a day.
Yes. Well, and I have a client who sits at the computer for their job, and then for fun, they go out and run, which I remember I used to think that was fun back in the day, not so much, however. But they were complaining about low back discomfort. I'm like, well, okay, how do you sleep? Oh, I sleep on my side, but my knees are kind of up, so hip flex. They sit down 8 hours a day, hip flex. Then they go run, and it's hip flexion, hip flexion, hip flexion, meaning that the hips are in a bent position constantly. And then they'll go to the gym and then do some of the machine works where they're seated, And then they'll ride the bike or something where they're seated. And she's like, I can't get my glutes to work well and my low back hurts. I'm like, well, let's think through this. So you didn't stretch out the front of your hips and you've been in a seated position throughout the entire day. And you've done this for multiple days. So if you can get up and stretch your hips and then ready for this, activate the glutes. So, you know, the big house, the booty is very important muscle. It's very important. You don't want a saggy butt. Nobody does. So just train it. And if you can train for stronger glutes and you can really focus on proper alignment, stretch out the hips, then we're going to have more, you know, you're going to feel better. You're going to move better. And you're probably going to see more, you know, time shaved off that you're not having to work quite as hard in your run, and you're going to enjoy it more and go probably longer. And, you know, after it just takes someone to tell you that for them to be like, oh, I gotcha. You know, plus now she's got amazing glutes. So she's ready for the summer.
At least, you know, you have a nice looking backside.
Always. Posterior end.
Now, as you talk about running, and we were now talking about activity, posture, again, to look at what that word means, it's not just, you know, we typically talk about the trunk and the spine and the head and the shoulders and sitting upright, but we also, we tend to forget to talk about the lower body as well. So when we talk about posture, it's not just about the upper body. We have to look at, you know, upper body from the point of sitting down, but posture also has relative meaning when it comes to standing up, and the exercises that you bring up, you know, running, walking, cycling, swimming, you know, those all include the lower body as well. It's not just sitting down and sitting behind your computer, or even just the act of throwing, which now you're using a lot of shoulder, but we are using from toenails to fingernails, training, right? Everything from toenails to fingernails.
Wait, you train your toenails and fingernails?
I do. Actually,
teach me.
I do need to trim them a little bit.
Well, trimming and training are totally different. So if I'm missing something, I did not learn that part in school. So I'm just saying.
So we also have to look, we have to consider the foot and ankle, the knees, and the hips when it comes to how we hold ourselves. And that becomes just as much a part of the equation for the upper body as it does the midsection, you know, or the hips, thighs, knees, foot, and ankle. So all of that needs to be looked at from top to bottom, literally,
including your nails.
Including wow.
I would show you mine, but my son helped to pick out the colors of my toenables, and they're, you know, I've got 10 different colors. They're all different colors. None of them are the same. But you know what? He loves them, so I'm going to sport him because, you know, he's 5, and if he wants to spend time with me while I paint my nails, and I'm all about it.
I think our viewers would pay good money to see what you're
I'm sure. Yes. So, I mean, at least I take care of my feet. That's very important.
That's good.
But you know, just before we close out and everything, I think it's important for our listeners to know accountability and awareness of how you sit, how you stand, and thinking about, you know, looking at yourself in the mirror and being real. How do you stand in comparison to if your feet were straight, your knees were lined up, and your hips and your shoulders and your head were just all straight ahead. And if you look from yourself from the side, everything lined up. If you looked at how you stand versus you put yourself in that position, how uncomfortable do you feel? And if you know that you feel uncomfortable, then you know that there's probably some muscles that are too tight. There's some that are not strong enough to kind of hold you in good alignment. So that's when, you know, you can reach out to a trainer. You can actually look, you know, online. There's some really good resources, especially at NASM.org, of getting on there, get a foam roller, take some time, foam roll some areas that are, you know, that are tight. And if you find something that's tender, just sit and marinate on that spot. Don't roll it. It's not like a rolling pin. Just sit, marinate, let it loosen up a little bit, try to get more tension, you know, get some of the tension out of that muscle, add some stretching techniques, and then strengthen it. Do some awesome upper body, lower body strengthening exercises with proper alignment, and you're going to move better, feel better, and you're going to look better. Everyone looks so much better, including me. I look taller when I stand upright. Like, I need more height. Why don't I do that all the time? Because I'm lazy. That's why.
Best case scenario, you're going to a person that's been trained and has experience understanding the importance of posture, what ideal posture looks like, and again, what it takes to move out of that posture as far as strengthening the muscles that have progressively gotten weaker because of your poor posture, and the muscles that have gotten tight and overactive because of that resulting posture. And if you don't have access to somebody, or you don't know how, who to go to, who can I refer to help me stand better. One other thing to do, just, in simplicity, is if you look at the position you're in a lot, like this forward head computer posture, do the opposite, right? So like you mentioned, get on a roller, or you just lay out a thick pillow on the floor, put it across your mid upper back, and then just go ahead and extend yourself and open up the chest, open up the shoulders. And, to your point, Wendy, if it feels good, go with it. If you feel the stretch and you feel it a lot more in one area versus another, that just means your body needs it more. Of course, assuming that you're doing the stretch properly and you're not just getting some random tight area, but you can't go wrong as long as it doesn't cause any pain. But whatever you do a lot, go the other direction, and that's gonna help you open up. So if you're flexed at the hip, open up the hip, straighten out the legs, get the knee back relative to the hip, or get the shoulders back, get the chin in relative to the head coming forward. So do the opposite of what you do a lot, and generally you should be okay. But the best case scenario, go see somebody, get some help on what it takes to help you move better.
And I will say this, if your clients have kids, and you can say that you know this, and I can as well, because I have a 5-year-old. But that song, like head, shoulders, knees, and toes. If they say that, then you start getting that song in their head. They're very aware, and it's like, okay, that's what I want you to think about every day. Look at your head, shoulders, knees, and toes. Where are they pointed? Is everything straight ahead? And if, and so they're like, oh, and I'll get text messages like, I've got that stupid song in my head and I can't get it out. And I'm like, then I did my job. You know what? Because it's making you aware. And so then I'm like, where are they? Are they straight? Are they pointed out? Are you crossing your legs? I'm like, stop doing that, because like you said, if you cross your legs, it can just throw everything out of whack. So, So at the end of the day, why is alignment important? Because you're going to move better. You're going to look better. You're going to feel better. It's all good.
Yeah. Everything works better. Your lungs, your heart, your organ systems, all of that. So one takeaway, Wendy, what would you tell our listeners that they can do to best improve their posture?
I think it's really just take a look at the mirror, make yourself aware of what's proper and where you are, where maybe you deviate from that. And then just spend some time stretching, rolling, trying to correct that on your own, or to, like you said, seek help, because one compensation can lead to multiple issues throughout your entire body long term. If you can just correct it from the beginning and start working on it, it will lead to a lifetime of you feeling better. Like at the end of the day, that's basically my main point. Just awareness.
Awareness is important. And I would add on to that by saying, don't make repetitive positions, postures, so repetitive. So what we're talking about with the computer, the alarm, something pops up to signal you to stand up, move around, do it. I used to just press stop or just minimize it and put it at the side of the screen, but actually get up and do it, move around, open up. And that way you're not you don't have 2 or 3 hours of this one position. You maybe have 60 minutes into a position before you move and stretch and get out of it, and get some blood flow, get some oxygen. You think better, and like you said, you feel better. So I think we just need to just move more, move better, move more, and a lot of the stresses that we tend to accumulate through the day, may not go away 100%, but anything you do to decrease that is one more for you. One win in the box by the end of the day.
Yes.
So Wendy, I want to say, hey, I learned quite a bit from you today, as always. Thank you. And,
Thank you.
And for those of you listening to the Random Fit Show, this is our podcast on the power of posture. Thank you for spending this much time with us, and hope you learned as much from Wendy as I did. But if you like what you had to listen to, please like, follow, subscribe, download all the things that gives you access to all the things that we have to share. And until next time, everybody, take care and be well.